Hello, my brothers and sisters in gaming, and welcome back to the channel. As always, I'm Jonathan, your host here at QuickBird Gaming. Thank you for tuning in for another episode of QuickBird News. I really do appreciate it. So in this week's episode, we're going to be covering all the games news from 13 to 19 July. A whole lots to talk about. We got Ubisoft putting their foot in their mouth again. We've got an update on the Subnautica and Krafton situation, and and a little bit of good news at the end. But right now I want to start with the title story, and we're going to go take a look and see what Fromsoftware has got stirring. Okay, like I said, we're going to start out with this article from Eurogamer, which was published on Friday, July 18th. Fromsoftware reportedly in advanced development of an unannounced project alongside the Duskbloods, which could be out next year. Now, the thrust of this article says that Fromsoftware is reportedly in advanced development of a project, according to the website MP First, which has information suggesting the studio has a multi-platform a game with the codename FMC in development. And they believe that it is a multi-platform game, this FMC, because Duskbloods, the game that they're working on right now that they've announced, is exclusive to Nintendo Switch 2. Now you come down here and they talk a little bit about in this article, and if you go over to the MP First article, they echo this information. They talk about how the previous Dark Souls games and Armored Core 6 had codenames with abbreviations beginning with F. For instance, Dark Souls 3 was FDP, Dark Souls Remastered was FHD, and so on. I'll skip over to that article from MP First since it has it in a nice chart form, and you can see here that the Dark Souls games were all started with an F, their codenames did, as did Armored Core down here, whereas Sekiro, Bloodborne, Elden Ring, and Elden Ring Night Rain all started with other letters. So the implication is that they are working on a game, if their codenaming is consistent, that is maybe a new, something in the Dark Souls or Armored Core realm. And coming back over to Eurogamer, that's what they say here. The suggestions, it could be either one. According to the Xbox Era podcast, they reported last year Dark Souls 3 Remaster was in development. And series creator Miyazaki said he considered Dark Souls 3 to be the big closure on the series, but would that rule out a remaster? And then they also say Armored Core 6, meanwhile, was a successful revival for the studio, selling 3 million units in under a year. Okay, see, to me, the takeaway from this, if this is indeed the case, that Fromsoftware has another game in the works that they are in advanced development for, this is a good thing for the gamer. Of all the studios out there, Fromsoftware has probably been delivering the most consistent performance over the last couple of years in terms of the games playing well, being intoxicating and inviting, and being something the players want. I know Night Rain had its ups and downs, but Elden Ring obviously was a cultural phenomenon. Armored Core 6 did very well, and I believe another Souls-like game or another Armored Core game, either one is going to be very well received. And let's face it, we're in an era where we're getting a lot of garbage games, where a lot of franchises are being ruined by subpar games or by bad, studio politics or whatever you want to say. A lot of franchises are not living up to expectations. So the fact that Fromsoftware might be putting out another game is, in the near future, is exciting, and it is something to kind of look forward to. Now, yes, I understand this is all speculation, but I'm willing to hang my hat on it just because it's nice to have a little good news once in a while. So is Fromsoftware putting out another game? Can't tell for sure, but the signs are looking good. Okay, next up we need to talk about the Subnautica situation and what's going on between Unknown Worlds and Krafton. Just as a quick recount, if you're unaware, Unknown Worlds, the studio that put out Subnautica, was purchased by Krafton several years ago, and with Subnautica 2 coming out, there was a very large production bonus attached to Subnautica 2 coming out on time, in the neighborhood of $250 million, essentially. And then very suddenly, very abruptly, on July 1st, the CEO and the two lead designers, so essentially the three people that founded Unknown Worlds, were turned loose from the studio. They were taken off I think they were actually just fired. I don't know for sure, but they were taken off the Subnautica 2 project. And now allegations have been flowing back and forth between them and Krafton, with Krafton saying that these individuals were not going to get the project ready and that they were diverting their attention to other individual efforts. And the three individuals have said that Krafton essentially was trying to delay things to avoid the game releasing in 2025, which was one of the conditions for them to obtain this huge bonus. So I have two articles from Video Game Chronicle here kind of covering the most current status of this. One which was published, published on Thursday, July 17th. Subnautica founders' lawsuit accuses Krafton of ripping the game from its creators in the name of money. And the first part of this article just kind of covers what I just talked about. And the developers announced they were launching legal action against that. The decision was made to fire the execs before it was due to pay $250 million to bonus team. That's what we just talked about. On Wednesday, so that would have been July 16th, the details of the former executives' lawsuits against Krafton were published. According to court dockets seen by Video Games Chronicle, the trio claimed breach of contract and accused Krafton of delaying Subnautica's 2 release into 2026 despite the game being ready for 2025 early release access as planned. And that's key because that would have triggered their bonus. This is the document. Reading in short, Krafton flagrantly breached the letter and spirit of the promises at the very core of its agreement to purchase Unknown Worlds. It promised to leave creative and operational control in the hands of the founders. It promised to consult with the founders, and it promised not to terminate the founders without cause. And this says it broke all these promises. Why? Because Krafton knew that allowing the founders to launch Subnautica 2 would generate enormous commercial success and require Krafton to pay the $250 million earnout. And they go through this and on and on and on, and basically say that Krafton had started earlier this year laying the groundwork to fire them, to delay the game, to avoid paying the bonus. And in the interim, Krafton has come back and they have paid $25 million, so a tenth of this, to the actual development team. Not the 3 individuals, but the development team, saying that they were going to pay them. This is something that those three developers had said they were going to do, and now Krafton kind of undercut them. So you can read through all of these documents, and there's a lot here. They say that at the meeting, Krafton announced, the obstructionist tactics intensified at the 27 May 2025 milestone review meeting. At that meeting, Krafton announced the game had to be delayed based on the review of the experts. The founders, that these are the people suing them, would later learn the purported experts had little expertise to share. None had worked on successful early access games, and none had experience with games in Subnautica's 2 genre, that of survival. And they go on and on and on. And there's a lot here. So they are actually taking them to court, and they are looking to sue them. And what is Krafton's response? Well, in this article published today, as of the making of this video on the 19th of July on Saturday, Krafton responds to the founders' lawsuit. We look forward to defending ourselves in court. And they say it was delayed for quality reasons. Essentially, they're saying, bring it on. Let's duke it out in court. So what do we have here? Do we have a rapacious, greedy company that is throwing these guys overboard to avoid paying a 9-figure bonus payout for a project that was due? Or do we have 3 individuals who were letting this go and were trying to push out a substandard product in order to take money from the company that they didn't deserve? Or is it somewhere in the middle? I guess we're going to see how it shakes out in court, because right now neither side is backing down, and with $250 million on the line, I don't see why either of them should. So this will be interesting. This will be interesting for the future. And this is all over a game that I would be quite shocked if this game earned $250 million in the first place. Maybe I'm wrong, but Subnautica was fairly well received. Its last DLC was not, and a lot of people were upset about it. Maybe the second game will be great. I don't know. But, either way, they're going to duke it out now. And for the rest of us who aren't involved, it's just sit back and chew on our popcorn and see what happens. Well, since we were talking about potential corporate malfeasance, this seems like an excellent time to bring up this particular gemstone that we get from Ubisoft. This was from Insider Gaming, published on Friday, July 18th. Ubisoft says monetization makes the player experience more fun.
You're kidding, right?
I don't even know where to start with this. I mean, actually, let me just cover this real quick. Ubisoft recently published a 400-page universal registration document, an annual financial report that covers everything you could learn. Okay, one tidbit that's being taken away with reckless abandon is a mention about the company's monetization model and the impact it has on the player. Yeah, reckless abandon is right. If you've been on the internet for 5 minutes, you know damn well the game community was going to run with this and have fun with it. Okay, let's see. The supersized report covers every facet, blah, 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 blah. On this page, Ubisoft representatives dip into the subject of monetization. And this is where a little delusion might creep in. No shit. Quote, let me try again. Quote, the adoption of monetization and engagement policies. See, just talking about this is making me flustered. The adoption of monetization and engagement policies that respect the player experience and are sustainable in the long term. At Ubisoft, the golden rule when developing premium games is to allow the players to enjoy the game in full without having to spend more. Our monetization offer with premium games makes the player experience more fun by allowing them to personalize their avatars or progress more quickly. However, this is always optional. I'm not actually going to blow my gasket over this because this is very typical corporate speak. Because this is not designed for players. This is not designed for end users or consumers. This is designed for investors to try and snow them into believing that people actually like to spend more money to enjoy their game experience, which is, complete and utter nonsense and contrary to any kind of common sense. But, I don't know that the suits who read this kind of stuff actually play games or know any better. Okay, and on page 135, another reference to monetization pops up. The safety and well-being of our players are our top priority. Okay, do everything we can to protect their data, provide safe, blah, blah, blah. And slightly further down, let's see. The group is committed to adopting a fair and transparent approach to monetization in gaming, offering fun, engaging, and immersive gaming experiences while ensuring the safety and well-being of players. Ubisoft's monetization strategy aims to enrich players' gaming experience by balancing the two main pillars, optionality and fairness across all genres. Again, I'm not going to hold it against Ubisoft for being a corporation. This is like holding a mouse's nature in a house. The fact that he's in your house and chewing it on your food when you're in bed and not awake, and you wake up and find that a mouse has been in the house. You don't hold it against the mouse. It's just doing what's in its nature. And Ubisoft is just doing what's in its nature as a corporation. However, I do welcome the opportunity for myself, for pretty much every other person who comments on games on the planet, to absolutely farm the hell out of them for this nonsensical take. This is going to end up, I think, up there with some of the great Ubisoft quotes like players should get used to not owning their own games. The fact that these people can say something like that, get dragged for it for literal years. I mean, that was said, I think, in 2022, and it is still regularly showing up in comments sections. People remember this stuff. And people are going to remember, ultimately, that Ubisoft said, we try to make monetization fun. Absolute brain dead. There's really nothing else to say. Okay, next up we have this somewhat developing story that's been going on for the last few days. This article was posted at IGN over on the 18th, on Friday the 18th of July. Valve pulls adult-only games from Steam as it tightens rules to appease its payment partners. It says the purge has begun. Valve is tightening its rules around adult-only content to satisfy rules set by Steam's payment processing partners, with dozens of explicit games removed from the platform throughout the week. Now, what the kind of upshot of this is if you are unfamiliar with some of the rules that go with payment processors, and here I'm going to specifically refer to major credit card companies around Visa and MasterCard. They do, as is their corporate policy, do not want to process payment for certain types of salacious adult material. And to avoid YouTube's algorithmic detection, I'm just going to say this is the kind of adult material that's mostly involved with, say, keeping it in the family, if you get my drift. Okay? So that is something that they don't want to be involved with, and I'm sure that there was some discussion, maybe not negotiation, but some discussion behind the scenes, and they basically told Steam, if you continue to offer these games, we are not going to be able to process payments for you. And PayPal does the same thing. And since you are going to go, you're sure to understand that the bulk of Steam's payments are going to come from credit card transactions. I would say 90% of them or more, if not all, they are kind of beholden to what these companies want to do. As spotted by GameSpark and shared by Automaton, SteamDB logs show a flurry of activity behind the scenes as Steam's updated its rules and guideline policy that was publishing certain kinds of adult-only content could violate them. They said the newly added clause now states content may violate the rules and standards set forth by Steam's payment processors and related cards and networks and banks or internet network providers shouldn't be posted on Steam. The Twitter account of SteamDB revealed a long list of games recently delisted. I'll open that up. And you may or may not be able to read this on the screen. But let's just see. Twins, daughters, twins, incest, daughters, family, daddy, twins. You're catching the theme here. This is not complicated. Okay, so that's what's kind of being delisted. Now, and then they go into and they say, so what's going on here. I am not going. A lot of people have already kind of thrown up their hands and screamed that Steam is giving in to censorship and this is the beginning of the end and blah, 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 blah. I'm not going to go that far with this. I think this is a concerning trend, mostly because if you go read the full language behind Clause 15, it's somewhat vague. And I really hate vagaries and rules like this because they can always be applied unevenly. They can be applied capriciously to, let's just say, somebody that pisses Steam off or pisses a Steam moderator off that is in the gray zone. They might get hit with this if they're somewhat in the iffy either or type of area. Whereas somebody who plays ball or somebody who is a big developer may slide under the radar for some more questionable type material. That's why I hate the vagaries. That's why I'm not necessarily blaming them. To me, this is actually, as a societal issue, this is a problem with having an oligarchy, a banking oligarchy, where a few very powerful institutions pretty much control all the financial transactions in the world, or at least in the country. And they can do what they want because they don't really have any competition. There are no other options for people to go through. And I think this is more of a symptom of that issue than of Steam caving. Steam has to live in the real world too. And they are not going to slit their own throat over a handful of games, which I'm going to be honest with you, probably are not bringing in either that much revenue for them or for the studios, and in order to risk losing their payment processing. This doesn't just happen in the video game industry, by the way. This also happens in the literature industry. There are many platforms out there that do not allow any kind of erotic literature on them, say, for example, for the same reason, because of payment processing. All organizations that get away with it are typically the ones that do it because they're huge, like that website that starts with only, because there's so much money involved in it, they can work around that system. Smaller companies can't, and while Steam is a multi-billion-dollar company, against the banking giants, they're a very small fish in a very large pond. So I don't necessarily hold this against them. People are saying Steam is caving, Steve is caving. they're not going to commit seppuku over this issue. I'm more concerned about the way they phrased their rules. But regardless, you're probably not going to be able to go out there and find, mommy sits on son's lap, the game, anymore on Steam. And, payment issues aside, only you can decide whether that's a loss or not. Next is this Insider Gaming article, which comes to us on Wednesday, July 16th. Sorry, I have to think about this. It must be getting late around here. YouTuber could go to jail for reviewing third-party gaming handhelds. An Italian YouTuber who is known for reviewing various gaming handhelds could be facing jail time for doing just that. Retro gaming YouTuber Once Were Nerd has taken to the platform to reveal he's being investigated for the Italian government for the promotion of pirated copyrighted games. And this down here is a picture of the individual in question on his YouTube channel. According to Once Were Nerd, on April 15th, members of the... I am going to apologize in advance to anyone who is Italian or speaks the language. Guardia di Finanza, a militarized law enforcement agency in Italy under the authority of the Ministry of Economy and Finance, showed up with a search warrant. This basically sounds in the U.S. basically like the equivalent of, I don't know, maybe the FBI, because since they're under the Department of the Treasury, or they used to be. Complying with their orders, the agency seized over 30 handheld gaming systems in his phone. He even showed the agency his conversations with the various manufacturers. The devices in question appear to be third-party gaming handhelds from companies like Anbernic, Go, Retroid, and others that usually ship with ROMs of various games that are often pirated from publishers like Nintendo and Sony. He said he's accused of promoting copyrighted material via social media, which is illegal. However, he says none of his handheld reviews were sponsored by the company, nor did he include any sort of affiliate links to the products. And basically, they say this dude could be up to 3 years in jail and 30 million Italian lira, which, if I went back and read, was something like 50 or 100,000 euros. I don't remember exactly. The law was written before the European Union. Okay, so this dude is unfortunately he's basically boned, and I don't know, man. It's hard out here for a pimp. This guy was just reviewing these things, but if there were copyrighted ROMs on the games he was on the handhelds he was reviewing, if they were installed, he's probably given them all the evidence they need on his YouTube channel. So you gotta be very careful what you say. You just really never know who's listening. Since we're talking about law enforcement efforts in the video game world, I have this article from Eurogamer, which was published on Monday, the 14th of July. FBI says it's now seized multiple ROM piracy sites, claims downloads resulted in $170 million in losses in just 3 months. Following the FBI's widely reported seizure of pirate ROM site NSW2U.com last week, the U.S. government agency has confirmed the move was part of an operation that impacted multiple targets. The seizure of several online criminal marketplaces that it had for 4 years provided access to pirated copies of highly anticipated video games days or weeks before the release date. It also claimed these websites had seen cumulative downloads of 3.2 million in just 3 months this year, basically March, April, and May, resulting in an estimated loss of 170 million. That's actual bullshit, because to reach that dollar amount, that would have meant that every single download was canceling a purchase. And I think the simple fact is that most people who pirate games wouldn't have bought the game if they couldn't pirate it. So the fact that they say it's caused that kind of loss is kind of ridiculous. And they just say that this goes into a little bit of the history of the FBI and what they've been doing lately and what they've been cracking down on. We're going to repeat what I said last week. I do not fault companies for going after sites that are handling their intellectual property illegally. Whether I agree with the companies or not, I think that's their right. I also think that our federal investigation apparatus has bigger fish to fry than this, and they are ignoring some long-standing problems. If this is what they're focusing on, they're fucking doing it wrong. I'll just say it right now. One man's opinion. they are doing it wrong if this is their priority. Now, people may say, well, this was not their priority. It was just a side hustle, side mission, side quest. Maybe. But in any event, they are kind of tightening down on this, on these type of sites. So, like I just alluded to a minute ago, not only should you be careful what you say, be careful where you surf, because you are leaving a trail somewhere. Next up, I want to talk about two articles that are roughly on the same subject, one of which is stupid and the other which is a little bit concerning and frightening. And the first of these comes to us from GameSpot. It was published on Thursday, 17 July. Call of Duty is now asking players to verify their age. COD players might lose their accounts if they don't verify their age. Some players are receiving messages when logging in to play Call of Duty requiring them to enter a date of birth before continuing the game. And the article talks about how it should be a mature game because of the blood and gore and everything, blah, blah, blah. And there's a Twitter picture of it where essentially you can see they say, yeah, parental consent required, account information, you enter your date of birth. Okay, the statement from Activision doesn't really make it clear why this is specifically happening now, but possibly fulfilling some sort of new legal activation. Regardless, players will now be required to provide their full birth date to Activision. And here is the key point. It's also worth noting that Activision is not requiring any actual proof of age in the form of identification. Players can input any date they want and claim it as their date of birth. So in other words, it's pretty much pointless. The other article in question comes to us from IGN, also from Thursday, the 17th of July. Roblox's new safety features included AI that will guess your age based on a video selfie. The company claims new features will help keep teens on the platform where conversations can be moderated. Roblox has announced a new range of safety features directed specifically at teenagers aged 13 to 17, including a new age estimation technology that uses AI to guess a user's age based on a video selfie they submit. Now, this article talks a little bit about some of the features they've implemented. They're trying to build trusted connections in users' situations, so teenagers and younger players who are on the platform are being safer. Trusted connections are intended to be set between users who know one another well, and if a teen intends to set someone 18 plus as a trusted connection, they can only do so using a QR code scanner or a contact importer. In the past, Roblox has relied on the submission of a government ID verifying that users are 13 plus or 18 plus to unlock certain chat features. However, it is now implementing an alternative verification method. Individuals can submit a video selfie to Roblox, and an AI will determine if it believes the person in question is 13 plus by analyzing it against a large, diverse data set. And then down here in the article, it talks about all the problems Roblox has had, repeated harassment and sexualization of children on the platform by predators. Quite honestly, to me, this goes back to the parents. Where are your parents, children, who are supposed to be monitoring what you're doing? And the world is a sick place, and it always has been. As much as we like to try to pull a veneer over it at certain ages, it has always been a very dangerous place. And as a parent, you are inherently responsible for this. And if this platform is not safe for your children, you need to get them off of it. And I'm not going to accuse the Roblox company that develops studio or publisher of anything nefarious here. I am not accusing them of anything. But this is probably too much for them to control, no matter what kind of things they use, what kind of tools they use. And this says nothing of the fact that this company is now asking potential minors to upload videos of themselves for age verification. For age verification. Any computer game that wants my underage child to upload a video selfie for age verification is a game my child will not be playing. So this is all basically just disturbing. On the one extreme, you have this utterly useless age verification that does nothing, protects nothing. informs nothing and is just some checkbox that they feel like they have to do and have implemented with the least amount of effort or care or effectiveness. On the other hand, you literally have a company suggesting that minor children should record themselves and upload it for age verification purposes. That's what they say. But children or underage people videotaping themselves and firing it off into the void, there's absolutely no way that can go wrong, right? Right? You see what I'm saying? So this is just becoming a massive mess. Okay, I said I'd close with a little bit of good news. It may not be good news for everybody, but it's good news for me. As I've stated on this channel many times, Fallout is my favorite video game franchise of all time. 3, New Vegas, and 4, I've logged hundreds, if not thousands of hours in the past 15, 17 years since 3 came out. But now, according to this GameSpot article published on Monday, July 14th, Fallout 5 is reportedly fully greenlit. They said that Fallout 5 is going to go forward now, and they're starting. If they haven't started working on it, they are moving forward. They will be starting shortly. The report comes from the latest episode of the Xbox 2 podcast, where Windows Central Executive Editor Jez Corden discussed how Xbox is handling Fallout as a franchise. He didn't know what studio would be developing 5, as he believes Bethesda Game Studios' core teams are currently busy working on additional Starfield DLC and Elder Scrolls 6. We were told by Todd Howard years ago that Fallout 5 wouldn't start till Elder Scrolls 6 was done. However, they say, Corden said from what he has heard, part of the push forward for Fallout 5 and Fallout in general came at the expense of ZeniMax's online next MMO, codenamed Blackbird, which was canceled as part of Microsoft's latest round of layoffs, which I covered 2 weeks ago. And at that time I said, with Blackbird being canceled, maybe it would free up some people to work on other projects, and apparently now that's what has happened. So, Fallout 5, it should be working soon, which means we'll probably get to play it around 2038 or something. So, anyway, fingers crossed. Okay, folks, I'm going to leave this week's episode there. Thank you once again for tuning in. If you enjoy this content, please consider subscribing to the channel. Keep trying to grow my channel, and hopefully eventually I will. And if you like this video, please consider dropping a like on it and leave a comment. Let me know what you thought. I enjoy all of that engagement, and it helps me out a whole lot. So I do appreciate it when you do it. So that we're going to call that. We'll be back next week for more QuickBird news and more shenanigans inside the gaming industry. Thanks again for tuning in. You all go out there, live your best lives, and y'all stay gaming.